Um, Wonderful. Again, I'm Frances Kramer, Director of Education at Pendle Hill. We're so delighted to have you all here with us in this virtual space. As many of you know, Pendle Hill is a nearly 100-year-old experiment in spiritual learning community, and we are constantly looking for new ways to grow and learn together. Our Monday night lecture series are a beloved tradition where we learn from different teachers in our community, locally and internationally, who share with us the work that they're bringing into the world and how spirit is alive for them in this moment. Today, we have the extraordinary joy of learning from Valerie Brown. Valerie is waving to us. She is an author, an ordained Buddhist Quaker Dharma teacher in the lineage of Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh and the Plum Village tradition, facilitator, executive coach, specializing in leadership development and mindfulness practices with a focus on diversity, social equity, and inclusion. We are particularly grateful that she is a beloved teacher at Pendle Hill and will share some further opportunities to learn with Valerie at Pendle Hill at the end of the program. A few logistical notes. We, in our constant experiment in learning community, are trying a new practice today for our first Monday lectures, where we're actually leaving friends with the ability to unmute yourself and the ability to write in the chat. We're doing that with the trust that you will use that communication in a thoughtful and spirit-led manner, recognizing that we have the great gift of, at this point, 88 participants and growing. So we invite you to think carefully about how to share with the community with care for the community. With that, I'm going to invite us to settle into some silent worship together. And from our silent worship, Valerie will speak to us. Thank you, friends.
So thank you, friends. I hope everyone can hear the sound of my voice. Okay, great. Welcome to this Monday night lecture. I want to express, first of all, gratitude to the community that is Pendle Hill and to you all for being here. Without you, we wouldn't have a Monday night lecture. and and I want to acknowledge the Plum Village community, of course, because virtually everything that I will be sharing with you tonight comes from our much beloved teacher and Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh. So to acknowledge Thich Nhat Hanh, Thai, as he is often known to his students, to the community, to Sister Chan Kang, who has been by Thai's side for many decades, and particularly to Blue Cliff Monastery, which has been, like Pendle Hill, a spiritual home for me. I also just want to say a big shout out. I see so many people that I just absolutely adore and love. Lori and Ruth and Wendy and Mary. There's just so many people here. I stacked the deck, right? And Judith with all the people that I love and just absolutely adore. And just thank you so much for being here. So my feet are touching the earth in the traditional lands of the Lenape Nation, and specifically an area called New Hope, Pennsylvania, that the Lenape name was Aquatong, Aquatong, which means spring in the bushes. And so I want to pay homage and express my deep gratitude and acknowledgement of the stewardship of this extraordinary nation of people who have stewarded and cherished the land on which I am presently situated. So as Frances, and thank you, Frances, you'll be doing the magic behind the scenes. Thank you so much for being here and for all that you've done for us at Pendle Hill. So a little bit about the structure of tonight. Yeah, it's a Monday night lecture, but it's not really a lecture. Consider this a learning lab. Truly, this is an opportunity for us to meander a little bit and explore and see where we come out on this topic of hope. I'm actually calling this skillful hope, right? So there will be a time, an open space time, where you'll have an opportunity to ask specific questions or share some insights. But throughout our time together until 9 p.m. Eastern time, this is really an open dialogue. And so I'll be asking questions, and hopefully you'll put something in the chat or you'll come off mute and speak. So with that, Frances, let's go to the first slide. So here we have it. Hope leans forward. This is about cultivating skillful, what I'm calling skillful hope. And so we'll go to the next slide. And here we have our beloved Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh. And I have to say that I feel so grateful that for the last 27 years, I've had this opportunity to be with the community and with Thais throughout so iterations iterations of his very long life. And so one of the things that Thai has said over and over and over again is intention, about our intention. intention in the Plum Village community is so important that it is actually considered a nutriment, a nourishment. We cannot survive without volition or intention. It is actually the ground of our very being. And so I'd invite you to take maybe the next 20 or 30 seconds, not a long time, to consider this question, which is our next slide. What brought you here? What did you say yes to when you signed up for this lecture? What learning intention would be meaningful for you at the end of our time together? So again, you'll have about 30 seconds of think time, quiet time for you. I'll stop talking. And then you'll have an opportunity to share out something that you wouldn't mind sharing with the people here on this call. And again, to go to essence. So let's take down the slide. And if you like, you can place the question in the chat, Francis. Okay, so is there someone who would like to start us off? Would love to hear from all 98 people, but obviously that's not possible. But maybe just to place something in the chat like Lordana has done to grow in simplicity. You can place it in the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature and raise your hand or raise your physical hand and come off mute. Um, mine Cove says, a nugget of wisdom I can reflect on for the rest of my week, month, year. Spending time with spirit. To be in community. Yes, to soak in the Dharma rain. To let that, to absorb that in our very being. To make art that inspires hope, a spiritual life. To practice open-heartedness. To learn something new in my spiritual journey? Yes, Advent. The Christian calendar of Advent is a special time to feel a little more grounded. Yes, a bit of joy in a busy life, says Kari. A compliment to the book. Thank you, Suzanne. All of this is very good. So I want to invite us to hold on to these intentions because we will return to these intentions at the very end, right? To learn about cultivating hope, to grow forward. Yes. Yeah, so hold on to all of these intentions. Okay, put that in a safe place. We will come back to that. So with that, we have looked at the first aspect of cultivating hope, which is to formulate, to cultivate an intention, a volition, the ground of our being. And David, good luck about being less cynical. It's a thing, right? Yeah, it's a thing. But I'd like to turn back to you and with a question, not a trick question. What does hope mean to you? What does hope mean to you? Again, you can place that in the chat. You can come off mute and use the raise hand. What does it mean to you to have hope? Mary Lou says commitment, less suffering. Christelle, an antidote to despair. Believing in something that isn't yet present, to see possibilities. Hope, forward looking, a sense of trust, faith in a way forward, to feel clearer. Encouraged, energy and excitement, the courage to move forward. Yeah, so all of that, these are all beautiful definitions. Not giving up, Pamela says. Yeah, these are all fabulous definitions of what it means to have hope. And so very much like you, I believe that the conventional definition of hope really needs to be much more layered for these very complex times that we're in. So in preparing for tonight's lecture, I went to Webster's dictionary and looked up the definition of hope. And Webster says, hope is an optimistic state of mind that is based on an expectation of positive outcomes with respect to events or circumstances in one's life or at the world at large. So it's an optimistic state of mind, and there's an expectation. So we know that hope, as in wishful thinking, doesn't work, right? It doesn't meet the complexity of the times that we're in. It doesn't meet the fragility of the times or the ambiguity of the times that we are in. And we know that hope that is overly focused on desire and anticipation of a particular outcome, that is a recipe for suffering. Actually, it points to the first of the Four Noble Truths that the Buddha taught, right? And so chasing down an end goal. So a personal example, a personal illustration in my own life, and something that I write about in the new book, Hope Leans Forward. So a couple of years ago, I was divorced. And getting divorced was the very, very last thing that I wanted. I was clinging to a marriage that was deeply troubled. But I realized that I had to let go of a kind of false hope in the marriage and see the reality of what was there, that the letting go of the marriage was a necessary ending that actually was embedded in my deeper values, which were around openness and compassion and a commitment to building trustworthy relationships. So hope requires this optimistic mind state, but a kind of non-attachment to a particular goal. So for hope, we need courage. So why would I say that? Again, come off mute and type it in the chat or speak it out. Why would hope need courage? to be vulnerable, yes, to give and to receive love, to face uncertainty with a buoyant spirit. Yeah, because it's a choice. All very true. To accept whatever comes with grace and with joy. Yeah, yes. So, yes, yes, yes to all of that. It's the courage to look at our values, our motivations. And from the Buddhist standpoint, we call this looking at our values and looking with a sense of compassion as the mind of bodhicitta. This is a mind that is deeply embedded with love. So even an action that is compassionate is not a goal that we run and chase after. We don't fight, kill, or die, but we're moving in this direction, right? We don't set this out as a goal to be attained. And so with hope, we need to practice what the Buddhists call aimlessness or businesslessness. So I'll say that again, aimlessness and businessnessless. Businessnessless, that's a mouthful, is a word from Master Lin Chi, which means we're not chasing after an end goal. And actually, there's a beautiful fragment of a poem from Shams Tabrizi, who was the spiritual teacher of Jalaluddin Rumi. And Shams pointed to this. He said we need to live our life in such a way that what I want also wants me, is looking for me and attracting me. I'm going to say that again because that is deeply important. To live our life in such a way that what I want, peace, love, forgiveness, a partner, whatever that is, fill in the blank. Whatever I want wants me. Matter of fact, not only does it want you, it's knocking on your door looking for you. It's been looking for you. What if we lived our life in that way? What I want wants me back. So we can practice aimlessness. So hope is not a singular state of mind. Hope also contains fear. Why would I say that hope contains fear? Anyone? And Deborah, thanks for putting Emily Dickinson. Yes, hope is a thing with feathers. So why would hope contain fear, friends? Why fear? Feel free to place that in the chat or come off mute. That's true, Geraldine. Yeah, that what you hope for may not arrive. Yeah, it can be fuel. It can motivate us. It can harness our energy. Yes, because the very nature is uncertain. To accept things as they are. Yes. Yes, that things may not happen. It's a precipice. We are fragile. We are vulnerable. This is the nature of hope. And so there is an element of fear there. And we have already established, right, that hope contains courage. And this really casts back to about this time in 1967. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave what he called a Christmas sermon. And he described courage as a kind of vitality. That was the word he used. It's a vitality that keeps us moving forward. And so here is what Dr. King said. He said, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Hence, hope leans forward. This is the nature of hope. It moves us forward in the direction of what matters most, what you have placed so beautifully in the chat. But the question is, do you know what matters most? This is how we began this Monday night lecture. I asked you, what is your intention? Why are you here? What is the ground of your being? What is your volition? What is your aspiration? And so this is a deep and important question for us to ask ourselves. What are our values? Are our values grounded in bodhicitta, in a mind of love? And this isn't easy because our daily life, we just have so many demands on us. But reflecting on our values does not have to be a heavy burden. It can begin with curiosity. And it invites us to take a personal inventory periodically, not waiting for a crisis to happen. And many people in this global pandemic have done just that. They've begun to ask themselves what matters, and then move in that direction toward awakened action, the so-called great reflection or great resignation. So we can cling to hope, as in wishful thinking, or we can move toward this kind of skillful hope. And several writers have talked about this nature of moving toward hope. So Margaret Wheatley, in her essay on hope and fear, says that hope is like, it's like the wings of a bird. Hope is there and fear is there. The stakes are high. There is risk. There is important work to be done around gun violence and climate crisis and social justice. And then, of course, Roshi Joan Halifax talks about wise hope that is situated in radical uncertainty, as you've already alluded to in the chat. We cannot know. Or Joanna Macy, the Buddhist scholar, who talks about the distinction between active and passive hope. That hope is inviting us to be an engaged participant in what we hope for, which invites us to a clear seeing. Or the writer and activist Rebecca Solnit, who says that hope and urgency can coexist together. We can acknowledge there is urgency, the stakes are high, and take action. So all of these are true. So that kind of leads me to the next slide on the elements of building this skill of hope. So this is what I've come to understand about cultivating skillful hope. It is a set of habits or practices that anchors us. It is situated in the present moment, yet that it is kind of hope that aspires toward the future. It arises from the very ground of uncertainty and impermanence. And this kind of hope, this kind of being, actually enlarges our resourcefulness. We become adaptable and courageous. It requires patience and a kind of readiness. And all of this is grounded in what Thich Nhat Hanh has described as interbeing, meaning that what happens to you affects me. What happens to me affects you. What happens in Wuhan, China, affects people in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So this is a commitment to habits and practices that anchor us in our daily life. And that then leads to the next slide, which is a laying together side by side of this way of cultivating hope, skillful hope, hope as a skill, and what the framework in the book of the 7 factors of awakening as described by the Buddhist teachings. So the words on the left are mindfulness and investigation and so forth, come from these 7 factors. So the very basis of awakening, this waking up to our daily life, begins with mindful awareness. And I don't mean anything highfalutin. It's simply being grounded in an awareness of what is. We took some time before we got into this lecture to ground ourselves in awareness through a silent meeting for worship. This is a practice of grounding in the present moment. To awaken is to engage in investigation. This is a kind of active exploration. And so this is what we've been engaged in. I've been asking questions, inviting queries, and inviting you to respond in the chat or coming off mute. So there's also an energy to this kind of hope, right? There is both an effort, right? And there is an ease. And so here I'm talking about aimlessness and businesslessness, right? This is the kind of effort. So we're trying. There is an effort, but we don't chase after it. So there's a kind of energy that brings with it the heart of joy. It's generative. It gladdens the heart. When we touch joy, the nature of that. And in a global pandemic, joy can feel like a very tall order. And so maybe the movement is toward delight, which is an element of this generative heart of joy. And then tranquility, right? So there is humility in as we move in this direction. As a Dharma teacher and a member of the Plum Village community, I often wear a brown jacket. The color brown, meaning that, we are of the earth. We're here to serve people. And concentration. So there is both a sense of urgency that there is important work to be done in the present moment that visions toward something in the future. And all of this rests in equanimity. Actually, it rests also in the mind of bodhicitta and a kind of steadiness and patience. So that then leads to our next slide. So through these practices, we become a baby bodhisattva, meaning a great being, a bodhisattva, a great being. And great as not as in highfalutin, but as in living into one's birthright gifts, the ground of one's being, one's true self. And so it's important to ask ourselves, what are my values? What matters and why? And what awakened action is called forward? What is being called forth for me? So perhaps, Francis, you can place those queries or questions in the chat, and let's go to gallery view. So I have shared a lot, and albeit I've had a lot of time to think about skillful hope and formulate uh, these ideas. So I'd like to give you some quiet time again to consider these questions. What are my values? What matters most? And why? What awakened action is being called forward from me? So let's just take, say, a couple of minutes to be with these questions or these queries, and then we'll have some time for discussion about the questions, the queries, and um, about what might have come up for you before we turn to a reading from the book and then some more open space. So again, some quiet time, and I'll monitor the time for a couple minutes. So I'd love to invite a few people if you would like to come off mute and speak about anything you'd like to share about these questions about your values, what matters most, and why, what awakened action is being called forth from you, or anything else that you might want to say with regard to skillful hope. Again, we'll have a little bit of time after a brief reading from the book to um, of an open space for Q&A and anything else you want to say. So isn't the only opportunity for that. But love to hear from you, or you can place it in the chat. There is also a raised hand feature at reactions, and you can feel free to use that feature as well. Amy.
Good evening, Valerie. Good evening, friends. What's coming up for me is in this category of, I read this year that if we are, let's say, over 50 years old and we don't have a mentor who is in their 20s or in their 30s, that we are missing out on some major changes in the way communication is done, in the way people are treated respectfully. And that's what's coming up for me. How can I model good behavior of awakened actions and remain, in a confident, grounded state of grace when people who aren't as aware of the um, the move away from a patriarchal society, or the move away from, older people just barking orders at younger people and things like this, that I see around me, particularly a lot in our Quaker world, that that my actions can be, accepting and grounded and confident and slower and quieter and have more equanimity, um, and maybe model the behavior or approach it energetically, like from the heart, because words don't really work. And sometimes words, create those microaggressions. So that's what the query brought up. Thank you for asking and for listening.
You're so welcome. Thank you for speaking. Jill or Ladorna, would you like to speak to what you've placed in the chat?
This is Ladorna. What I wrote is, whatever happens to me or to humans or to the earth, I think what's most important is the continued evolution of the universe. And I capitalized universe for a good reason.
Thank you for sharing that. Other thoughts or reactions to these queries? Lori, and then Eva.
What came to me was I had been involved with through Northampton Quaker Meeting. I'm the representative for an interfaith immigrant and refugee group, and the meeting that we had wanted us to be to take more action, to be activists, and that's not a strength of mine. And what I've been wrestling with since I had the meeting this afternoon was it became more clear with looking at Wake into Action, which was called forth to me, was that I shouldn't feel guilty about this not being a strength of mine, and that what I could do is bring it forth to the Quaker meeting and ask others to share this, and others to just be the spokesperson, but then others can take the action rather than it falling on me. So thank you. This has been helpful.
You're so welcome. It's great to see you, Lori. And yes, I love the transformation of that. And what does awaken action mean in your own life to embody that in a genuine and authentic way? Thank you. Eva.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Valerie. I love your book, by the way. I'm really enjoying it. I guess what's alive for me right now is what I've come to value is connection with people. And for me, it's not the big things in life that matter, but it's the little things, the little connections with people that I find are where I see love. It's quite profound. I'm new to Quakers. I just started working for the Canadian Yearly Meeting office, and so the whole idea of connectedness and meditating and listening for the light is a new concept for me. But it's bringing me a lot of joy and a lot of understanding that I never really found in my life before. And stumbling upon your book just simply because I get the Pendle Hill notices at my office every day. It's very serendipitous, and has helped me see that what really matters is connections with people in a loving, open-hearted way, to be able to have empathy, to listen with an open heart, and also to be heard with an open heart. And that's what I've come to value in life.
Thank you, Eva. I really appreciate the focusing so deeply on what really matters most. You know, what Ty would say, our volition, our aspiration, the very ground of our being. Yeah, what you actually care about. Thank you. And you, would you like to speak to what you've placed in the chat here? I would agree that it can be challenging to be an aimless activist. It's a kind of oxymoron.
And yet it does seem to me to be right. It feels right. And I'm grappling with it because there are so many things that seem to need, and I know this is challenging or dangerous territory, that seem to need to be fixed. And can we do that with a hopeful, aimless attitude? Again, it seems right. I don't know how to get there.
Yeah, I'm wondering from the 91 people who are gathered here, how many people can relate by a show of hands, either your physical hand or a virtual hand, to this issue of being a kind of aimless activist?
Mm.
So I'm seeing quite a few hands. Yeah, um, it's a thing. Yeah, a lot of folks are agreeing with you, Charlie. It is quite a thing. So there's a story that goes along with this that may be useful in how to actually do, how to move in the direction of becoming an aimless activist. So many years ago, I went to the Plum Village Monastery in Escondido, California. And there were hundreds and hundreds of people in attendance at the retreat with Thai. And at the very front of the hall, maybe the size of a football stadium, something like that, humongous place. At the very front was a ginormous uh, lettering. It was like a calligraphy. And the calligraphy had two words. And the words were in Vietnamese. The words were vo, V-O, and the second word was su, S-U. So eventually, after couple of days, I went to one of the monastics and I said, what, what is vo su? And the monastic said, it means you're very busy. You've got very important work to do, but you don't do it in a busy way. You do it in a way that embodies calm and peace and compassion. And that when this is how we are to approach any work that we do. And this was Thai's teaching for 80 decades. There is a lot of work to be done in the midst of the Vietnam War. And Thai is obviously not the only person who's talked about how to be an aimless activist. Howard Thurman, Thomas Merton, Henry Nouwen, Parker Palmer, all of these people, and just to name a few, I could keep going, speak about this way of being, that we have urgency in the world. There's good work to be done, but we move with a sense of peace. We embody the sense of peace. And by that, I mean, I can feel my breath in my body. I can feel my feet on the ground. I have time to understand another person's point of view. This is how we can change the world. You know, the caricature is the angry peace activist who will fight, kill, and die for peace. No, that is not the way. The way is to embody peace. And then whatever action arises out of that, we offer that with a mind of bodhicitta and a heart grounded in compassion, not the other way around. That is the lesson of Vosu. That is the lesson of being an aimless activist. So yes, there is a tension, and many people have spoken about it. Thomas Merton's beautiful quote about how do we move in the world to seek peace? Do we do it in such a way that then causes violence to ourselves and to others around us? This is not the way of peace. We embody peace, and then we offer that as our gift to the world, whatever action arises out of that. So, Charlie, I hope that's useful. So I know that there are a couple of raised hands, and I don't know if it's the raised hand from folks who agree with Charlie or not, but okay, Corinne has taken down a raised hand. Judith, you still have a raised hand. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add. Any further thoughts that you might have before we turn to a reading and then some more time for any questions or thoughts that you have? So I see Ruth has a raised hand. Yes, please.
I'm actually in Charlie's meeting. And we both serve on the change group to work on anti-racism within our meeting. And I've been learning something about what you've just been speaking of from my colleagues in that group as we've approached a decision point about a statement on anti-racism. And my mind was going to strategies and getting frustrated about last minute changes and, how are we going to handle this and what do we do about that? And 2 or 3 friends on that group said, we have come to where we were led. This is what we have. We go forward and see how the Spirit leads. And it was just all of a sudden so clear. Oh, yes, of course. That's what we do. And that's the aimless part at the end is you don't know how it's going to turn out. And that's fine. Something will turn out. And if the Spirit has led so far and we have been faithful to that, it'll lead somewhere good. So thank you for that.
I love that, Ruth. We are in a quite action-oriented, decision-focused society. And that's not a bad thing, but sometimes that goes berserk. Or it kind of haywire, where we get hyper-focused on an outcome and we forget the journey. And so what I'm suggesting here is a remembering of what is most deeply important, that we approach these actions with a mind grounded in love, a heart of bodhicitta. And with that, then whatever manifests, is coming from this beautiful place. Right? And again, it does not take away anything that either Rebecca Solnit or Roshi Joan Halifax, any of these people who have said about hope. But it's grounded in a kind of gentleness, and it is grounded in the cultivation of these skills, the patience and the tenderness, as well as the resourcefulness and all of these things, right? As opposed to attachment to an outcome, which is the ground of suffering, the first of the Four Noble Truths. And as Ruth said, yes, hope has with it a quality of gentleness. yes, you can see in Vosu that, and in businesslessness, words of Master Linchi, that we're not striving. There is a humility that is an energetic field of all of this. Right? So again, this is why I say hope today needs to be more complex and layered for the times that we live in. It's not just like wishful thinking that things are going to turn out. You know, that it's a much more nuanced and complex way of looking at hope. So, so with that, I'm going to read a little bit from the new book, from Hope Leans Forward. Is that okay, Francis? I don't see you on the screen. I just want to check in.
That's great, Valerie.
Okay. All right. So I'm reading from a section of the book on interpersonal mindfulness, which is our capacity to be with ourselves and with and to speak and listen to other people in a way that actually engenders peace, right? Engenders good relationships. And we have a process for doing that. And there are elements of that. So, and we practice this in the Plum Village tradition and in our Buddhist faith and practice. We practice how to speak and to listen. Listening for connection, for example, as opposed to correction of another person. What's wrong? How can I put holes through something someone is saying? No, we listen for connection. Where can I connect with what the other person is saying? So there are many layers of how to listen with this in this way. And so one of the practices in the Plum Village tradition is to practice open, to be open. And it's a very deep practice. And so here's what I say. So to open is to bring awareness to the present moment without becoming entangled, without embellishment, meaning without making a story about what's happening. She said this, he said that. It's never going to work out for me. The discipline is to notice when we are carried away by story, or more elusively, using story to dodge painful, buried, or unexamined emotions or more. Being open is like watching a swinging door. The door opens and closes. It's like watching the ocean. The tide comes in and goes out. It's like the sound of the wind bells. Ting, 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 ting. The sound comes and goes. To practice open is to notice without grasping, attaching, or entangling, which puts us at the edge of not knowing, uncertainty, and ambiguity. To practice open is to practice beginner's mind, a mind that is curious and flexible. It helps to practice this in small steps, to notice whether I can stay even a tiny bit more open than I did in the past. Breaking this down into small, digestible moments of noticing when I'm less rigidly clinging to my ideas of right and wrong. This was the hardest step for me. I had spent a couple of decades as a lawyer trying to be trying hard to be the smartest person in the room, carefully measuring success in what I could prove, buy, or own. My life was the opposite of openness. Instead, I was grabbing onto life out of scarcity and distrust. What actually began to open me was heartbreak. Over and over again. After my second divorce, I realized, yet again, that allowing the broken openness had a purpose. It shape-shifted me into a different, less cynical, more forgiving version of myself. So that is open. And actually, Charlie, that goes to your point about the aimless activists. So here you have it again. How to practice aimlessness. From someone who spent a couple of decades in the opposite or more, doing the opposite. I'm just saying. So with that, we have a few minutes for some open space time and love to hear your thoughts. Anything you'd like to say, again, please feel free to come off mute, raise your hand, physical or otherwise, or place your thoughts in chat.
Valerie, I can start with a question. I'm curious, you mentioned practices as one of the elements of skillful hope, and I'm curious what types of practices have been meaningful for you or that you would want to share with us here as pathways towards skillful hope.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So practices. So one practice that we opened this gathering with is the practice of volition or intention. To name an intention and aspiration. Why am I doing what I'm doing? You know, it's like, was it The Wizard of Oz or something like that? If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. So I have this post-it note on my desk that helps me. It's kind of like a bell of mindfulness. And I look at that post-it note because I forget. And on the note it says, what is it that only you can do? What is it? And again, it's not puffed up stuff. This is with honest humility. What is it that only I can do? Like, you know, it just helps me with my direction. So, intention. And the five remembrances, which is a gatha or a prayer in the Plum Village tradition. I am of a nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of a nature to have ill health. There's no way to escape having ill health. I am of a nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is precious to me and everyone I love is of a nature to change. Impermanence. There's no way to escape being separated from them. I inherit the results of my actions in body, speech, and mind. My actions are the ground on which I stand. Volition and attention is critically important. That is a very important practice. Other practice we began today. I think I said my feet are touching the earth in the traditional lands of the Lenape Nation. Very important to know where our feet are situated, to connect with Mother Earth. We live in a time of great instability where we're a lot of fragility, a lot of ambiguity. And so to do whatever we can to stabilize our being. And one of the practices every day is feel my feet on the ground. Just that. And it doesn't have to take a half hour. Just a moment. Feel my feet on the ground. So the 5 remembrances, feeling our feet on the ground or coming back to a sense of groundedness, especially when there's so much urgency and so much happening, and volition, intention. Does that help?
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think one of our fundamental queries at Pendle Hill is always about practice and how we live and embody our values and what kind of traditions and ways of being can help us align our actions and our lives with what we're believing. And I'm grateful for you sharing that.
Absolutely. So we may have time for another question, and I see my friend Carrie has a raised hand and love to share. Please, Carrie.
Hi, everyone, and hi, Valerie. It is so wonderful to be here tonight. I really loved what you just said a couple minutes ago, and I'd like to know if you made it up on the spot. Is it in the book or elsewhere, or did someone else say it? And it was the part where you started saying, I'm of a nature to grow old.
Thank you, Carrie. It is not in the book. This is a prayer, a gatha. So a gatha in the Buddhist tradition is similar to the Christian tradition of ceaseless prayer, in which this is a time of Advent, the time before the birth of Jesus Christ. And so it's a time when Christians are often called into a kind of continuous prayer. And so when my eyes open in the morning and I realize that I have the gift of another day of life, 24 hours to live, this gatha, this prayer, comes to me. So a gatha, thank you for Francis for putting that in the chat, the 5 remembrances, so everyone has it. So a gatha is a way of praying throughout the day. When I turn on the water and there's hot and cold water, there is a prayer. When I turn on and off the light switch, there is a prayer. When I put on my socks to go out, there is a prayer. And so we can cultivate this mind of bodhicitta throughout the day. And again, it doesn't have to take a long time, a way of remembering. And so the 5 remembrances is a deep, deep practice to remember I am of a nature to die. I am of a nature to become ill. This is the nature of this human body. It is not, I'm not here forever. And so with that remembrance it's very clear about how to live my life, my daily life. So, Carrie, is that useful?
Thank you so much.
Great.
Valerie, you said
Mariah,
something.
yes.
You said something that started with what I want me. Could you say that again? And where does that come from?
Mariah, it's hard to hear you
Um,
and see you.
oh, sorry. There I am. You said something in the beginning, or towards the beginning. What I want wants me. What I want wants me. Huh? You can't hear me.
It's hard to hear you, so say that one more time.
You said in the beginning, what I want wants me. And there was a phrase that you used. I wondered where that came from, and if you could
Yes.
say it again.
So let me repeat that again. So that was, sometimes you're given a poem that is a gift, and it would be stingy, not to share the gift with friends. And so I've been sharing these beautiful words from Shams to Breezy. Shams is the spiritual teacher of Jalaluddin Rumi.
Okay.
Rumi, who was a Persian poet. So here's what Shams said. Again, this is in the nature of aimlessness or businesslessness. What I want, we should live our life in such a way that what I want also wants me. Think about that. What if what you want wants you? Then you don't have to chase after it because it actually wants you, is looking for you, has been knocking on your door. So Sham says, quote, what I want also wants me, is looking for me and attracting me. So what if we lived our lives with whatever it is we want, fill in the blank, that also wants me back. We could let go of the striving. I don't have to work so hard because it actually wants me back. Then I can relax. I don't have to strive. There can be ease and joy. Oh my goodness, it actually wants me back.
Valerie, I see there are other hands, and I think we could continue this conversation for a long time. And in fact, I hope that we do. There's a request in the chat. If you could share the quote from Shams to Breezy, maybe we can share that afterwards. But I do want to bring us towards a closing. I knew there were a couple of other slides you wanted to share. Do you want me to share those now?
Francis, thank you so much. And yes, we see the raised hand of Emily, and we are headed toward close. Before we go there, in 1 minute, less than that, I want to invite you to go back to your intention. I asked you to write an intention that you had. Now you know why that's so important. Go back to your intention. Take a look at that. Let it wash over you. Pause with it just for a moment. Now let's turn to that next slide. So yes, the inquiry continues. We have a lovely companion guide to the book Hope Leans Forward. It's electronic, and so you can continue to reflect. There are beautiful queries and meditations and practices that will support you in deepening your sense of your own values and awakened action. And then the last slide, which is how to stay connected. please, I would love to hear from you. And please feel free to jump on my website and join my mailing list. Absolutely would love to hear from you. So with that, Frances, take it away.
Thank you so much, Valerie. And thank you, everyone. As Valerie said, you all make up Pendle Hill. This is the community that we're building together, and we're so grateful to be able to do it with each of you. I'm going to put into the chat a couple of additional opportunities to continue to learn with Valerie at Pendle Hill specifically. One is our annual New Year's retreat. Valerie will be offering Open Heart, Peaceful Mind for from December 28th to January 1st. There's still spaces open to come join us in person at Pendle Hill to have some real time of retreat and reflection together. And then additionally, we are really excited to be partnering with Woodbrook to continue a conversation specifically about this book. So there's going to be a 3-week-long series in March and April about Hope Leans Forward. There's a free taster session coming up this Saturday, December 10th. And you can find out more information about that and also about all of our other upcoming programs on our website. As always, if finances are a barrier, we really encourage people to request financial assistance. We're excited to find ways to welcome everyone into our community. And I'll invite all of us to just take a moment together in silence as we close this evening. Thank you, friends. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank
you. It was so wonderful to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Valerie.
Thank you.
Valerie.
Thank you, everybody.
This was great. Thanks.
Thank you, Valerie, very much.